Today on NewsWatch, President Obama's final State of the Union. Hear what issues he's expected to talk about tonight. Plus, you might remember the 90s movie Not Without My Daughter. We're hearing from the woman whose life the film was based on. You won't want to miss Mahtab Mahmoudi's amazing story. And preparing for the worst, see how this unique program is training police officers to deal with terrorism here in America. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. The president delivers his final State of the Union tonight. Many people believe he will attempt to frame this year's election choices while also defending his legacy. And as Heather Sells reports, that means lots of talk about the economy.
I have no more campaigns to run.
The president's no longer running for office, but he is running a campaign to defend his record and argue that his policy should continue after he leaves the White House. He's expected to highlight the economy tonight, a 5% unemployment rate, and what he calls strong job creation in 2015. But critics point out that the recovery under President Obama has been weak by historical standards. One reason why, the administration's heavy government regulation, which has hurt business. On Monday, another coal company declared bankruptcy. As the Wall Street Journal noted, the coal industry has lost 40,000 jobs since 2008, and 27 other companies have declared bankruptcy in the last 4 years. With the Iowa caucus just 3 weeks away, voters are already looking ahead to consider the president's replacement.
I feel really good about where we are, but I'm not taking anything for granted.
And the latest polls show she shouldn't. In Iowa and New Hampshire, the Democratic race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders is tightening. Some analysts believe Sanders may even sweep the first two states. On the Republican side, frontrunner Donald Trump still has a strong lead nationally, but he's facing tough competition in Iowa from Ted Cruz.
We will win the general election in November 2016 and beat Hillary Clinton.
With the two candidates just a few percentage points apart in the Iowa polls, Trump is lowering expectations and diving into retail politics.
The reason the other people do the small diners and everything is because they can't get anybody to show up.
What the president says tonight will help to set the stage in Iowa and down the line. Democrats are looking for a legacy they can defend and build on, and Republicans are looking to turn away from the president's policies and cast a new direction for the country, and hoping that voters will buy in. Heather Sells, CBN News.
And for a bit of analysis of the president's eighth and final State of the Union address, we turn now to CBN White House correspondent Jennifer Wishon.
One of the constitutional duties of the President of the United States is to, from time to time, inform the Congress about the State of the Union. Well, President Obama is delivering his eighth and final State of the Union address. You may remember he won in 2008 on the promise of hope and change, a promise that he has certainly made good on. He has made many changes to the nation. You can decide for better or worse. We can expect him to celebrate that list. But we can also, despite his lame duck status, expect him to focus a lot on the future. As Republican presidential candidates talk about the Obama policies they plan to undo if elected, we can expect the president to talk about more changes he hopes to see in the years beyond his presidency.
We all need to do together in the years to come the big things that will guarantee an even stronger, better, more prosperous America for our kids.
Well, this administration has certainly embraced social media, and for the president's final State of the Union address, they're working to meet people where they are and make an experience some people may consider boring a little more interactive. The White House is debuting a Snapchat account with behind-the-scenes images. The president's address will stream live on YouTube. And finally, using technology called Genius, the White House has taken all 7 of the president's previous State of the Union addresses and added some context. Take a look. Here's the president's speech from 2011, and you see these highlighted sections. Here's the president talking about an empty chair in the House chamber, which is where former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords should have been sitting that year. You click on that, and you see a tweet from this year from Gabrielle Giffords saying, "Thank you, POTUS, for standing up to the gun lobby when Congress won't." So it's a way for the White House to highlight successes and add context. It's kind of interesting. You should check it out if you have time. For now, I'm Jennifer Wishon in the newsroom.
Thank you, Jennifer. Just as the president delivers the State of the Union speech every year, the head of the Family Research Council addresses the state of the American family. And this year, he sees some serious threats to it. Paul Strand reports now from Washington.
FRC Chief Tony Perkins points to attacks against religious liberty as one of the threats facing American families.
The whole family is really at the core of who we are as a people. And that is really guided by our faith. And as Christians, if we can't live according to our faith, whether it's in the home, whether it's in the workplace, in the school, then we really can't be the Americans that we have the right to be.
FRC brought several individuals together here to personify how religious liberty threats are coming at families and believers from many different directions these days.
That included Kim Davis, the Kentucky County Clerk who went to jail last year after refusing to issue gay marriage licenses.
If it comes to me, it's going to come to other people, and families are at risk.
How does she see the battle for gay marriage as a threat to the family?
The very intricate workings of family in itself is at risk, and that's why this is so important. You know, marriage is fundamental for families, and if that breaks down, family is lost.
Then there are the schools. The ACLU accused Louisiana high school principal Jason Rowland of unconstitutional religious proselytizing. What did he do?
I was accused of wishing may God bless you, on just our community and our school community.
Rowland worries what's ahead for American culture if something that small leads to lawsuits.
It's a tragedy for America if that's going to be something that people begin to, that you're offended at.
Our opponents seek to limit our freedom of speech because they fear its power.
In his speech, Perkins emphasized how all our freedoms hang on religious freedom.
The freedom of expression is the very essence of liberty. But there can be no liberty in America without religious liberty. In our hearts, we know this to be true.
Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Family Research Council.
The president of Turkey says a suicide bomber launched a terrorist attack in a tourist area of Istanbul today. The bombing killed at least 10 people and wounded 15 more, including foreigners from Germany, Norway, and Peru. Turkey's president says the bomber had ties to Syria. And on Monday, Islamic State terrorists in Iraq targeted a shopping mall in Baghdad. After setting off a car bomb, they launched a suicide attack on the mall, killing 18 people and wounding 50 others. Iraqi forces killed 2 of the gunmen and arrested 4. Shortly after that, a back-to-back suicide attack targeted a cafe in a town north of Baghdad, killing at least 24 people. A federal court has ruled Fort Wayne, Indiana can block a pro-life group from buying ads on city buses. Women's Health Link wanted to advertise its counseling services. Here's what the rejected ad looks like, offering a free resource for women seeking health care. The city rejected the ad, saying it's because the group's website addresses controversial issues. But the Alliance Defending Freedom says, quote, city officials can run nearly identical ads from other nonprofit groups such as United Way and then single out Women's Health Link for censorship. Government has a responsibility to ensure all organizations benefit from community advertising. A Republican lawmaker in Virginia is pushing legislation to protect local elected officials who object to same-sex marriage on moral or religious grounds. Senator Charles Carrico says many of his constituents are concerned about what happened to County Clerk Kim Davis in Kentucky. They asked him to help Virginia officials who are put in the very same position. Davis spent 5 days in jail last year for refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Democratic Governor Terry McAuliffe has already vowed to veto the bill if it passes Virginia's GOP-controlled General Assembly. Church is not what it used to be. A Duke University study suggests Sunday morning worship service is no longer church as usual. In the last 17 years, churches have traded the typical organ, bulletin, and choirs for worship bands, sermon notes, and shouting amen. The National Congregation study found American religion is loosening up and straying away from an emphasis on belief and doctrine. Instead, it's moving toward an emphasis on experience and emotion. An increasing number of congregations are also no longer affiliating with a specific denomination. And the face of the American church is also now more ethnically diverse. Well, coming up, it has been 20 years since the movie Not Without My Daughter was released, and now the real daughter shares her true story of abuse and escape from Iran. The harrowing escape from Iran of an American mother and her 6-year-old girl stunned the world in the movie Not Without My Daughter. But that movie and the book that inspired it were told from the mother's perspective. Now, 2 decades later, her daughter tells her own story.
20 years ago, Sally Field starred in the movie Not Without My Daughter, a movie based on the true story of Betty Mahmoudi and her daughter Mahtab. Betty was married to an abusive Muslim husband who prevented her and Mahtab from leaving Iran. Now Mahtab shares their ordeal in her book, My Name is Mahtab, and how she learned to forgive the father who shattered her life.
And Mahtab Mahmoudi joins us now. More than 20 years have passed since your escape. Why did you decide to write this book at this time?
Well, I was so blessed to have the opportunity to write, and then the timing. I've had the opportunity over the years, but I wanted to do other things. And the timing now was specific because this woman who was a very dear friend was dying, and it was her dream for me to write. And then this opportunity presented itself again. And I thought, all right, if I'm doing this to honor Anya, I have to do it right now.
Awesome, awesome. Now, what was it like to go back? Let's think, you are 6 years old and you are thrust into Iranian culture. Do you remember what it was like?
It was a culture shock for sure, but it was a celebration at first. The first 2 weeks were very joyous, and the family really went out of their way to treat us with honor, to welcome us in a way that was filled with honor. And so things like slitting the throat of a lamb and having us step over the blood into the home. You know, to the American culture, this is something revolting, but in the Persian culture, this is a huge honor. So we were welcomed back in grand style.
Wow. Now, there was obviously a turning point. So the lowest point for you and your mom living in Iran with your father, what was the lowest? The
lowest point was, not being able to do anything when my dad would beat my mom. I would try to jump in and help, and he would hit me or throw me across the room, or but I'd try to make myself vomit to distract him, anything to make him stop. For me, that was easily the most difficult part.
Now, your mother, many would find it hard to believe, gives you the choice to flee with her and go on this escape. Why do you think she decided to give you the choice?
Well, she was making a very important decision that would impact the rest of my life. And we had been partners. We were in Iran. We didn't have anyone else to rely on other than God. So we helped each other through this time, and she wanted to let me have a say in how my life would be impacted.
Getting through this, I imagine you leaned on your faith to rise above those circumstances. Share a little bit about that with us, your faith.
In Iran, Mom and I prayed. Before we went to Iran, there were people in my life who planted the seeds of faith, and then coming back and ending up at a parochial elementary school where I was surrounded by God's word and surrounded by God's love. And I loved memory treasures. To every week we were assigned memory treasures. So I memorized passages and hymn verses. And for me, that was such a huge comfort to know that when my dad did kidnap me, because I thought for sure it's going to happen, that I'm taking God's word with me.
Now, in 2009, your dad died. I'm imagining you forgave him before that.
Oh, long before. I think I forgave my dad, in the first couple of years after our escape. It wasn't easy. It took time to come to terms with the trauma and move beyond it. But then every time he reappeared, I had to do it again. So I forgave him early on for what he did to us in Iran. And then when he would present another threat, then I would have to learn to forgive him again. So the work of forgiveness was done long before he died, many times over.
Beautiful. And many people could learn that lesson of forgiveness from you. Now, one thing I want to mention is that you also were diagnosed with an illness throughout this process. Tell us about that.
When I was 13, I was diagnosed with lupus. And I've been so blessed that for most of the years that I've dealt with lupus, I've been relatively healthy. When I was first diagnosed, I was very ill, and even there, God's hand was directing. He gave me an opportunity. There was a doctor in Germany who had an experimental treatment, and he treated me, and that saved my life. But now I'm dealing with lupus again. Now I'm on the upswing of the worst flare I've had yet.
We'll be praying for you indeed. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And there is so much more about your fascinating story. I want to let people know that you can get it all in the book. It's called My Name is Mataba, and it's available, of course, wherever books are sold. God bless you.
Thank you. The same to you.
And up next, counterterrorism training for law enforcement officers that's all too real. See why cops are lining up for this training, often on their own time and with their own dime. An Indiana police officer did something unusual last week. Instead of giving a speeding semi-driver a ticket, he prayed for him. Police Sergeant Toddy Durnhill said that when he pulled Rodney Gibson over, he appeared to be very upset and angry. Turns out Gibson had just found out that his daughter, who's battling breast cancer, could only have months to live. He didn't even realize he was speeding.
I asked him if there was anything else I could do for him before I left, and he said, do you know how to pray? And putting those two things together, I almost fell out of the side of the truck there, because I thought, here I was thinking about this man needs prayer, and then he's asking for prayer. He had no idea what I was thinking about. Wow. And I took my hat off and knelt there on the side of the truck and took his hand and said a prayer for him and his family, that he would have the Lord's peace through this difficult time.
Officer Durnhill said he hopes others who hear about this story will also take the time to pray for Gibson and his family. Americans know today a terrorist attack can happen anytime and anywhere, so area police departments are getting ready in case terrorists strike in their area. Chuck Holton visited one training program in Arkansas where police officers are being prepared for the very worst.
In the wake of continuing terror attacks around the world, it's clear international terrorists are evolving to use ever more spectacular and brutal tactics. Coordinated attacks on multiple locations can quickly bring entire cities to a standstill and represent a nightmare scenario for any law enforcement agency. Just outside Little Rock, Arkansas, law enforcement professionals from across the country come to this 700-acre facility to find better ways to respond to such attacks. The Direct Action Resource Center, known as DARCY, has been developing counterterrorism techniques for 2 decades and offers a special course several times each year for law enforcement. Former Green Beret Rich Mason is the founder.
DARCY was started in 1996 as a way for special operation type forces, law enforcement and military, to get it kind of off campus, away from the flagpole, and to really focus cost-effective training. DARCY focuses mostly on things like urban warfare, counterterrorism, things along those lines. We have ranges for everything from sniper to pistol. We do concealed carry, low visibility operations, explosive breaching, things like that.
The Law Enforcement Counterterrorism course brings in cops from all different agencies and throws them together in a chaotic, hyper-realistic scenario from day one.
This course is designed to defeat a multi-cell attack, similar to Paris, but actually worse in scale.
One of the things that makes DARCY training so effective is that they have the cops bring their same equipment that they would take on their real calls. So the SWAT guys bring their same body armor, the same helmets, gas masks, and even weapons. And there's one important difference, though, and that's this little blue bolt that goes in their weapon while they're here. This is modified to only fire plastic bullets. The reason why that's important is because the OPFOR, or opposing forces here, are all live guys, and they're shooting back at you with these same plastic bullets. Now, this isn't paintball. These things really hurt, and the point is, when you get hit, you know it. That makes the training painful, but very realistic.
Yeah, this training is very important because it puts everything in a context for law enforcement. The aggressive nature of something like a lone wolf attack with multiple guys, a multi-cell attack, is different than day-to-day, I guess what they call routine law enforcement operations, even for tactical units.
It's mass chaos initially because you're going to get reports coming from a bunch of different directions about a bunch of different issues occurring.
Mike Cowan is a Memphis cop who has been to DARCY several times.
There are not enough tactical guys on one team to respond to a major event like what we saw in Paris. So we would have to integrate together, and so having the opportunity to train and learn these tactics and then be able to teach these tactics so that we can all be on the same sheet is why we're here.
This is training you can't get anywhere else.
Lieutenant Chris Amling is a sheriff's deputy in Pulaski County, Arkansas.
When you have a guy that is actively trying to hurt you, and it's not for play, I mean, it's real life, you put a lot more into it, you take your time, your breathing goes up, I mean, everything, it feels real. It really does.
The scenarios keep changing and getting more chaotic throughout the course, and that's done on purpose to keep these guys guessing and make the value of the training even higher.
You know, you have everything from suicide vests to being shot at, you know, it's kind of a full spectrum of violence we're able to simulate for the law enforcement entities that come out here.
And cops are lining up for the training, many taking vacation time and spending their own money to be here because they understand what's at stake.
I mean, it happens here in the States, and we have to prepare for that and be ready for it, whether it's ISIS or whether it's homegrown terrorism. We've got to get this training, we've got to put it on our guys, and we've got to make this real-world experience happen right now.
With the next attack likely a matter of when, not if, these men are spending lots of late nights at Darcy, making sure they'll be ready.
Knowledge is power, absolutely. The more you know, the more you've experienced, it definitely gives you an edge.
From Little Rock, Arkansas, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Knowledge is indeed power. Not sure you can get any more real. Stay with us. We're coming right back with more of CBN NewsWatch. And here's a point to ponder as you make it throughout the day, and you can share this with others as well. Our Heavenly Father is often calling on us to do the exact opposite of what we're seeing in society. Consider this. In this age of multitasking, God is calling for a singular focus. He wants a one-track mind fixed on Him. Remember, He will keep you in perfect peace, but that requires that your mind stay on Him. So on this day of nonstop texting, tweeting, Periscope, and Snapchatting, ponder that point and make this a terrific Tuesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Of course, we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Make it a terrific Tuesday.